The steps towards death are, in my belief, quite short, and they're quite close to one another, all these steps that you take towards death. And this is a sort of Compagnie Marie Chaudenard take on the art of deformation, the art of corruption towards death. And what this is all about is it's about devolving your thinking, your thinking towards society and your neighbor, thinking towards humanity, and falling down a far darker path than you can imagine, and going down a path towards pure violence and chaos and destruction. And it's quite a short path, the steps down to the void of pure chaos and death is quite a short path. And what I've found is that experience plus as well, philosophy is the strongest path towards pure violence and chaos and destruction. When you suffer, I've studied this quite extensively, and it's complicated, so it might take a bit of explaining in order for you to understand it well. And so I'm going to go into a little history, as well as psychology and biology here. But of course, it depends on the person. It takes a certain kind of person to become a serial killer. It takes a certain kind of person to give away all their belongings to those who need it. There are huge contrasts between a psychopath and, for instance, an autistic person. There are huge contrasts between someone that is raised in an abusive, impoverished household, and someone that is raised in a wealthy, loving household. There's huge differences in the impacts that these things can have. And so, it depends. It varies quite a bit. But what I have noticed is that the upbringing of a normal child and a psychopathic child, or a schizophrenic child, is similar. The outcomes of the behaviors are similar in a way. For instance, a friend of mine, who was raped by her father when she was, I think, around 6 or 7. She started to be raped and beaten by her father. She ended up becoming a drug addict, who had an obsession with violence and gore, while the other friend of mine, who was raped when she was 6 by her father, developed a drug and alcohol addiction, as well as a strong obsession with closeness to people in a way. So the differences between the two were a little bit there, but nonetheless the outcomes of the two were quite the same. And so I've noticed that the path to darkness, the path to evil, it primarily depends on the upbringing of someone, and their philosophies, how they're raised, who they're raised by, where they're raised, and what sort of philosophies they develop. And what I've learned is that two normal people, let's just go with gullible people for the simplicity of this study example here. If you had two normal people being raised in different houses, two twins, pretty much two twins being raised in different households with all the same mental abilities and perhaps disabilities, whatever, just pretty much the exact same, these two twins, they could both drastically end up different depending on the philosophies that they're taught. And so I found that experiences in childhood, and teenhood as well, but especially more so in childhood, as well as philosophies that are developed during development, can have a huge impact on the path someone takes in life. And of course, the more severe, the child neglect or child abuse is, the more severe the philosophies are, the more good or evil someone could become when they grow up. And of course, genetics can play a massive role. If a psychopath is abused, in childhood, that they'll most likely grow up to become a serial killer, or have a strong tendency to want to harm and steal and destroy things. It's just how they are in their nature. And so, it leads me to this belief that perhaps almost nobody is really evil exactly. We're not too good or too evil. It's just all about philosophies, and it's all about our upbringing that makes us who we are. Because if genetics play a massive role in who we become in the future, the kind of person we become, then therefore it's not really our fault if we become a serial killer, if we have psychopathy in our genetics. You're not capable of understanding, of feeling morals, empathy the same way that others can. And so, for that reason, I don't think that there is truly such thing as good or evil in a human sense when it comes to humans. On a larger scale, I do think that there is perhaps spiritual good and evil, on a biblical spiritual level. But I don't think when it comes to humans there's a such thing as true good or evil, since our genetics and our environment make us who we are. But because of my long studies, my deep understanding of human nature, not to brag, I believe that the pathway, the stairwell down to, or the stairway down to evil is a rather short one. It doesn't take too much. And I found that just philosophies alone can drastically impact the outcome of someone's life, even if they're normal. But they have to be gullible. That's the thing. Some people are very gullible. They can fall for religious things, or other types of things very easily if they are more gullible in their nature. So there's a lot that determines these things. But the pathway to evil is a quite short one. But for people who are high in conscientiousness, and people that are not gullible and that have a high intelligence, it takes a lot more for people like that to go down the steps to becoming evil. It takes a lot more. And so in a way, if our genetics, if our environment, if our teachings from childhood to teenhood to young adulthood to adulthood, seniorhood, whatever, if all these things determine what makes us who we are, is evil really a thing? Is there really true, undeniable evil in this world? And is it really that hard to become evil, when all of us in our default nature, with our high intelligence, are capable of more evil than a chimpanzee and a chimpanzee is capable of far more evil than a wolf or a rabbit. When a higher IQ leads a life form to being more capable of evil, worse evil. Who's to say that we are really evil, or who's to say that we're not evil? It's an interesting little thought experiment. I thought I'd bring up, and it's the variation is a Compagnie Marie Chaudenard variation of this philosophy, and I think it's a quite interesting one. So anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I really would like to hear what you have to say about what I've said in this podcast. And definitely check out my other content, though. I make some interesting stuff. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and that's all.